Good morning. Welcome to Be the Change, a brand new radio show on WLTK-DB.com, Paranormal Talk Radio. I'm your host, Christina Bloom, and today's show we are going to be talking to an activist. His name is Logan Jacobson, and he has some great insights on how people can get involved in activism. When it comes to change, I think that there are so many different ways that we can facilitate change. We can affect each other personally. And if you change one person's life, if you help to facilitate a change in one person's life, it is paramount to that person. And it just keeps going, like the drop the pebble in the pond and the waves that go out from that. There are so many different ways to get involved in creating change. And, we're all familiar with the big change makers, let's see, big change makers, Rosa Parks. There's an example of a really big change maker. All she did was sit down on the wrong seat of a bus, and she changed the face of equality and justice in the United States. There are so many others too that really come to mind, but I really want to focus on what can we do as individuals to facilitate change in the world, to make the change a better place, make the world a better place through our own change. First of all, I want to bring up that most of us need to do some soul searching before we can really facilitate some great change in the world. And even if that great change isn't far reaching, it's still change. I love I know a woman who works with difficult animals, dogs in particular, who changes that dog's world by hosting that dog by, what's it called? Foster care for the dogs. And she can take the most scared dog that just will not let anyone close. And she can transform that dog into a loving family pet who has, over the trust issues, has really learned to live in a family. And I really admire her work. And her name is Linda Ledbetter. She has a book coming out soon called Ernie's Journey of Hope. And we'll be having her on as a guest one of these days too. The way that we can make change within ourselves first is to really get honest with ourselves. And that can be facilitated a number of ways. Meditation is a great way. Therapy, getting involved in spiritual organizations, which, that can be a whole new topic. But it's really paramount that we really know ourselves when we intend to make change in the world. Not that you can't, we're always constantly growing and changing. So, you get to a point where you go, okay, I'm ready to share this. And then you share it. And maybe down the road, you look back and you go, well, that wasn't quite what I meant. So I'm going to adjust it and I'm going to share again. And that's how change keeps going, because anything that doesn't change dies. It's really that simple. If there isn't growth, there's death. So there's really a lot of things that we can do to facilitate change within ourselves and within our own families. Parents can take parenting classes and become better parents. The schools are changing. Oh my gosh. So much. There's been a lot of complaints for years about the schools. And I know a number of teachers, and the way that the schools are handling things is changing, and it's changing in positive directions. There's, that could be a whole new topic as well. And maybe someday we'll have someone from a teacher from a school who can be on. It's just amazing to me how so many people don't think that they have the power to change anything. That is so untrue. We have the power to change things as groups, as individuals, as small groups, as large groups, however you want to do it. There is so much change that we can make in the world. We just have to decide what we want to make better. We really just have to decide what we want to make better. Maybe it's through writing a book. Maybe it's through activism that Logan will be talking about in a little while. Maybe it's through just connecting with other people. Who doesn't feel better after just having a conversation with a friend? particularly if you're dealing with some very difficult issues. Ooh, I just ran out of words. I had a feeling this was going to happen, but you know what? The words will come back, because that's what happens. The words just come back. I wanted to also talk about why we chose Be the Change. And by we, I mean myself and my producer, Todd. We chose Be the Change because the world is changing so fast right now. For better or for worse, the world is changing very quickly. And we really have to be intentional about the direction we want to take that. If you've ever heard me on anyone else's show, you have heard me talk about ascension and ascension symptoms and all of the things that can happen as we're going through an ascension and our body's not feeling well and feeling like we're crazy and all of those things that all come together with ascension symptoms. The thing is that as we're ascending spiritually and we're becoming less tolerant of violence, we're becoming less tolerant of bullying, we're becoming less tolerant of a lot of behaviors that negatively impact people. That's our spiritual life coming down from the heavens, if you want to look at it that way, and connecting with our physical lives. And really, that's where change happens, is when we start bringing spirit into our physical lives and we start honoring the spirits within ourselves and we start feeling like we have the power to make positive changes in the world. And, you know, all you have to do is go on any social media and sit back and just watch it. You will see where different people see change in different ways. And ultimately, it seems like most of us want the same thing. We want our children to be safe. There are different ways that people look about making that happen. We want women to be safe. At least most of us do. And, you know, we sit back and we look at just the different ways that people want to make that happen. And some of those ways seem very conflicting. But if we can get past the conflict and we can get down to what is it that we really want to accomplish? What is it that's going to make humanity better? What is it that's going to help us grow and support the next generations and support our environment and all of those things that support our life that are very, very important in both the spiritual world and the physical world? And bringing those two things together is paramount to any kind of real change. It was paramount to women getting the right to vote. It was paramount to people of color getting the right to vote. It was paramount to changing some of the things in our education system. You know, if we haven't learned anything from the last 18 months about, and I'm in the United States, so I'm going to speak for our American health system. If you want to call it that, it's more an illness support system. But we are noticing now in larger numbers that needs to change too. That needs to change because we have people dying from poverty in one of the richest countries in the world, and that's not okay. And that's not a political system for or against either party. That's just the way it is. We need to stop having people die from poverty. It's that simple. So what can we do to change it? And so what we have is that we have natural healers stepping up. We have people stepping up who do massage, reflexology, energy healing, essential oils and aromatherapy. And we are looking at how mental health is changing and how mental health is treated in this country. And that has been kind of a rapid turnaround in the last 18 months, where we are seeing more options in mental health care. Do they still cost? Yeah, they still cost. I mean, therapists need to get paid too. So, of course, there's going to be cost involved. But what we need to understand is that when we work together, these changes happen better. They happen more frequently. They happen in better case scenarios. And I'm sure that everyone who's listening can come up with some reason why this didn't work or that didn't work. Okay, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do to change it once we've seen the problem? This isn't just about talking about the problems. This is about talking about the solutions. And sometimes solutions are quick and easy, and sometimes they're not. To change an entire profit-based medical system, that's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be quick, but it can happen. And there's evidence of that all over the world. So that can happen. We are talking about changing an education system. You know, we did find out that people can learn from home. Oh my goodness, people can work from home. And it works just as well. And sometimes better. Sometimes it works better, sometimes not. You know, some people don't like to work from home because it's too distracting. I get that. I work from home. Sometimes it can be distracting. We do, however, have the options now that we didn't have before, where people can work from home if they need to, or if they want to. I gave up my office to work from home during the pandemic, and I'm finding out that it's easier to work from home. A lot of people are. So there can be changes that can be made very simply, and then again, other changes that are bigger and more complicated. As we're looking at the publishing industry, say, I opened a publishing company because I got really tired of watching authors get the least amount of money from their books. Like everyone else along the line took a chunk from that. And so with a friend, we created a system where authors get paid their full royalties and we don't take any. And to me, that was just an amazing change that could happen in the publishing industry, because as an author myself, you know, it was either confusing for self-publishing or kind of getting raked over the coals with standard publishing. And I'm very happy to say that we have some authors coming into publication that are amazing, who maybe wouldn't have made it into publication had they not had this option. So there's a change that was made. As I'm getting into this further and I'm looking at my notes, you know, and I know don't look down because you have a camera, but I'm looking at my notes and I'm seeing that we have some incredible examples of change on bigger scales, and we have some pretty good personal examples too. I would like to also bring up Nikola Tesla. We were going to do a practice run for this show from Niagara Falls, and there was just some technical issues. We couldn't pull it off. But if you haven't been to Niagara Falls, there is a museum there and a statue of Nikola Tesla. I can't imagine anyone doesn't know who he is at this point, but in case you don't, he was an electrical engineer who created the alternating current system, which we use every day. It can take energy through wires and now wirelessly all over the place. And he created wireless, but for capitalist reasons, we didn't have it for a long time. But now we do have it because, you know, there's now a way to charge for it. So he changed the way electricity is used worldwide. You can now transmit energy great distances, where with the direct current system, you had to be very close to the source to get the energy. That is no longer the case because of Nikola Tesla's work at Niagara Falls. He and George Westinghouse designed and built the first hydroelectric power plant. I wanted to make sure I said that correctly. Power plant in Niagara Falls using the energy from the waterfalls. And it's a beautiful place too. So if you haven't been there, I strongly suggest it. And we can look at other people whose efforts only provided us with information, and that information was very important. Greta Thunberg, the climate activist, the 16-year-old climate activist from Sweden, she didn't really change anything. She didn't create any new systems, but she was really paramount in making a lot of people aware of how bad the environmental issues really are worldwide. And we are seeing more and more evidence of that based on the combination of drought and floods all over the country. And it's really, you know, her bringing that information out was really important for people who just weren't paying attention, maybe didn't know what was going on, didn't really care about it. And now we're seeing more and more that we have to care about it because there are water shortages and there's clean water shortages. those are things that we really need to pay attention to. And if someone just makes enough noise to get us to pay attention to it, then that's great. You know, they're the protesters in South Dakota for the pipeline thing that went across the reservations in South Dakota, and all of the Native Americans who were out there protesting and who brutally being dealt with. And now that pipeline is apparently shut down, at least last I read it was. There are people who put their lives on the line, like those protesters, and then there are people who just make us aware of information. Both of those people are important when it comes to making change on our planet. And indeed, without the change, I mean, every planet has a life cycle, but without the changes, we are really shortening our life cycle on this planet. I wanted to also talk about Mary Harris Jones. You might have heard of her as Mother Jones. She, after several devastating losses over a period of years, she became a real voice for labor organizing in this country. And that's why we all had the day off yesterday. Labor unions were paramount in getting rights for workers, you know, the 40-hour work week, the 2-day weekend, I can't even imagine. Like, I have totally forgotten like every single thing that the labor unions have done, but they've done so much to be able to create safe working conditions. Oh yeah, kids going to school instead of working in factories. That was labor unions. And those labor unions have done a lot to get us to this point. And now we're going, okay, this point was great, but now we need to get to the next point. How can we help people live? Because most of us don't have a parent at home and a parent working and be able to keep food on the table. Usually it takes more than that. So now we're seeing changes in labor where even menial jobs, and I don't believe that there are any, which is why I use quotation marks, even menial jobs are starting to pay more. I'm not sure that they're up to a living wage yet, but they're getting there. They're getting better. So as we look at the cascading waterfall, so to speak, of how one activist or one change precipitates another, and this is how it keeps growing and changing. And of course, there is always going to be need for change makers, because we are always going to need to upgrade the changes that we made. We have, I talked about Rosa Parks. Dan Price, is anyone familiar with Dan Price? I got to tell you, I'm a big Dan Price fan. Never met the man, but he is the CEO and founder of Gravity Payments. He's the guy who upped the minimum wage in his company. His minimum wage in his company is now $70,000 a year. That's what his lowest paid employee makes, $70,000 a year, because he saw a problem and he was able to fix it, for at least for his employees. And he really took a lashing, I guess, in the public about, well, you're not going to be able to stay in business. He's going to be out of business in 6 months. And quite the opposite happened. And his business is thriving and his employees are thriving. And it has just been, I've been watching this from the outside and reading articles, and it is such an amazing lesson in how treating people fairly can bring prosperity. That's what we need to remember too, is that we can all live more prosperously if we are living in a way that supports other people. I was trying to see, I don't have any other ones written down, but I'm sure that you can think of some. There have been change makers all over the world, and we don't always hear about them if they come from other countries. Nadia Murad, who was a former slave, escaped after 3 months. Now, this is just a few years ago. This is not a long time ago. This is just a few years ago. And she founded Nadia's initiative that helps women and children affected by mass atrocities atrocities and human trafficking. So she has set up a system that helps people get out of human trafficking because she had been involved, not voluntarily, obviously, in human trafficking. Everybody has a story to tell, and your stories can change the world. With that, we're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, we will be talking to activist Logan Jacobson.
Two intuitive books, one amazing author. Intuitive You. Psychic and Personal Development by Christina Bloom. We all have the ability to tune into our sixth sense, the realm of intuition. Whether your intuition presents as a gut feeling or full psychic ability, Intuitive You will help you to fully embrace how your intuition works. Let's not forget about Christina's newest book, Wisdom for the Age of Ascension, Channeled Messages from Divine Intelligence. Wisdom for the Age of Ascension is an updated and expanded second release of Christina's first book, The Contemplative Truth. Christina has expanded her reach to more light beings, enabling more information to be channeled to you, the reader. Wisdom for the Age of Ascension and Intuitive You by Christina Bloom. Get your copies today or visit moonbowpublications.com. That's moonbowpublications.com.
Hi, welcome back. We are going to be welcoming in Logan Jacobson. He is an online facilitator of change.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, good morning, Logan. Looking good.
Thank you.
Looking good. So why don't you tell us a little bit, let's just start off a little bit about what you do and how you facilitate change in your world.
Well, it's like you said, a lot of the struggle for being the change is getting the information out there. That's what I do. I'm a bit physically disabled and can't really travel all that much or be on my feet for very long. So I dedicate myself to making people more aware of what's happening where.
Okay, great. Let's talk first of all about, I know that you were really involved in getting information out about the pipeline in South Dakota. Tell us about that, because you really worked hard on that. I was watching you online.
That was a long, hard struggle, but thankfully there's actual real change being made in that area. One of the biggest bits is fighting misinformation, because it can be so dangerous when you're getting incorrect or deliberately falsified information and believing that it is real. Right.
So in your opinion, what are the biggest sources of false information?
Whew. There's a lot of them. Honestly, you know the big names out there for false information, Breitbart, Fox News, all that. Mm-hmm. But there are many, 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 many others that people don't know about, which is why it usually comes down to verifying the information and doing the research yourself so that you can actually verify what is and is not.
Right. And I'm just bringing up a list that you sent me this morning here. Sorry, looking at the camera here. Let's see. I can't even see that. Never mind. I'm trying to see it. My eyes are just going, nope. Spreading awareness of accurate information. So where do you get your information?
I have numerous sources, honestly, and a lot of it does come through, I have some people emailing me directly. Some of it comes through Facebook. Some of it I have to go hunting for, especially because with a lot of the more contentious issues, there's it can be very hard to find information that is accurate.
Right. Right. I know I look online and I see just a lot of conflicting information. And how do we sort through conflicting information without just automatically going to our own bias?
The biggest way to do that is by checking their sources. You know, if they're getting their information from reputable sources, even those that might be on the ground at the scene of whatever may be happening, you have to make sure that it's coming from a reputable source.
Okay. And I know as people, we are tended to our own biases. So that I think makes it a struggle for a lot of people, especially where information is concerned, because we want to believe what resonates with us, whether it's true or not. It's kind of a frailty of humanity, is that we want it to agree with our sensibilities. And when it doesn't, how do you deal with information that is true, but you don't necessarily agree with it? Like, how do you sync that with yourself?
Well, really, if it's true and it's pertinent to what you happen to be trying to get out there, then it is important at that point to sort of eat crow and say, you know, I was misinformed, or I was misled on this or that, and taking responsibility for it and trying to be better in the future.
Right. There's so much power in I messed up.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
There really is.
It's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of power in that. So, see, again, I'm trying to read your handwriting here. Sorry.
I know it's atrocious. That's why I type usually.
Okay, so the difference, I like what you have here about the difference. So this thing happened to me, so everybody else should have to have it happen to them too, versus this happened to me and no one else should ever have to go through it.
Yeah, there is a very big difference in mentalities, and I think that the latter is what gets people into activism in the first place.
Right, right. You know, so as far as student loans, and boy, I'm still watching arguments with that go on online.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you know, there's a huge leap up from it's perfect the way it is, I had to deal with it, you have to deal with it, suck it up, to the other way, it's free college for everybody. And, you know, I think that there's, personally, I'm all for free college, but I've been to college and I know it can be tough. So even if you're getting free college, you still got to work. You know,
Right.
It's not, you don't just get handed a degree. There's a lot of work involved in that. So I think also, though, that there is some middle ground on that, like maybe loans without interest.
Maybe loans that aren't trying to fleece you 7 ways from Sunday.
Yeah. So there, I mean, there are big differences in how things can be dealt with. And I think that as Americans, and I don't know about the rest of the world, I honestly have not reached out to that many people in other countries. I do think that in the United States, we have an either or mentality. It's either this way or it's that way. And it seems to me that if we can find common ground somewhere in between on a lot of issues, not the pipeline issue. I'm totally with you on the pipeline issue. Like, there should not be one. But I think on a lot of issues, if we could find common ground, we could find a way to work through a lot of the things that need to be changed. And, you know, the people on the far left and the people on the far right are not going to get their way. That's just the way it is. No one is going to be 100% satisfied with that. But if we can meet in the middle and come up with something that works for most people, to me, that seems paramount. Like that should be the ultimate goal almost with activism, is to just find something that works. Does that make sense to you?
That does make sense. And ideally, we do want to find something that works for everyone.
Right. Or at least for most people.
Right.
Let's see. It often requires creative thinking and adaptability. Let's talk about that.
Well, a lot of that comes from, well, like I said, I can't really do much traveling or anything physically intensive, so I adapted. I adapted to, you know, distributing information and verifying it and making sure that people understand what is happening, why it's happening, and what's being done about it.
That's great. That's great.
But
Creativity is huge.
it really does require a lot of creativity, because especially with a lot of the anti-protesting laws going up,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's you gotta be adaptable.
I really feel like you have to be adaptable to get anywhere in life, and that absolutely makes sense to me. You know, it's not the strongest that survive. It's those who can adapt to change most
Precisely.
easily. Yeah. Spreading awareness, listening. All right. Listening and learning from those affected. Yeah. Talk to me about that.
It's not enough to just say that you're trying to make change. You actually have to listen to the people affected by whatever cause you may be backing up. Yeah, and it's with interpersonal stuff like racism and sexism, it is a lot easier to listen to. I don't like to use the word victim, but there is a heavy, what's the word I'm looking for here? There is a heavy percentage of victimhood in a lot of these cases.
Right. And actual victimhood as opposed to
actual victimhood, as opposed to someone
perceived.
Just like, oh,
yeah.
It's listening to people that are going through these tough times, listening to people who are dealing directly with the issues, and not just, I'm referring to myself here, but some putz on the internet.
There you go. I had a thought and now it's gone. Flew away. I do think it's important, though, that people understand that. How am I trying to say this? Okay, so if we're listening to someone who has actually been oppressed, and you have someone who is not the direct oppressor, but is maybe part of that genetic group or that ethnic group that is where the oppressor is oppressing, they're part of that, but not directly. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I see what you're saying.
Okay, so this person who is not directly oppressing, but here's what the oppressed has to say, and then just goes, well, if you just worked a little harder, well, if you just blah, blah, blah. How can we get people to hear that? How can we get people to hear and understand that their reality is not the only reality?
Yeah, a big part of it is understanding that people will only understand from their level of experience and their own lives. And it's tough to have a conversation with someone who is so vehemently, oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Because that's, I don't know if you know much about that saying, but it was intended in its original inception to be an example of something that is impossible.
Right. Right. And the people who are saying it apparently are not aware of that connection.
Not at all. Almost hilariously so.
Okay. All right. So what else how would you encourage someone to get involved in activism from wherever they are? Let's say because you're physically disabled, how would you encourage other people who are in your situation to get involved in something that's important to them?
Find a way to make your voice heard, make your opinion on the subject heard. But in doing so, do not drown out those who are directly struggling, directly being oppressed. Your job as an activist is to lift those voices higher so that they can be heard by a larger populace.
Okay. That makes sense. So let's say I want to get involved in, I'm already involved in so many. I'm trying to think of an example that doesn't pinpoint, how would I get involved from my home, from my computer, say in lobbying for legislation for higher wages?
Having conversations is the ground level of any movement. And naturally, you have to find people who are willing to have conversations and not just whataboutisms.
Right.
What the average person can do is just that, have conversations. It's going to be difficult at times. You're going to run into a lot of Dunning-Kruger effect, where people are so set in their own mentalities that they cannot see any other way.
Right.
And I hate to put it that way because it sounds defeatist, but I personally have not had much luck in swaying hearts, which is why I stick to distributing information and letting them make their own opinions.
Right. And again, we tend to gravitate towards our own biases, which is really what can make making changes frustrating sometimes. However, I would encourage people, keep trying. Keep trying. Have those hard conversations. Have those hard conversations with yourself. There's really times where I catch myself with thoughts that run through the back of my head that I grew up with that I know are incorrect, but they're still sometimes sneak up on me. Sometimes we have to have those hard conversations with ourselves, and we have to say, okay, now that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not the way it is. Blah, 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 right? It can be difficult though, but it really does start at home. It really does start with our own selves and challenging ourselves to think more broadly and to be open to information that maybe we hadn't heard before, might not agree with, but being able to sit back and look at that information. And I'm sure that there are people who would say, well, you don't do that to me because I don't put up with oppression and I'm very verbal about it. And I don't put up with oppression. So, people who are oppressing don't see themselves as oppressors. And I think that's the hardest shell to break through.
It is. There's an old saying, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers.
Right.
And it's very pertinent, especially in these subjects.
Right. Equal rights and equal rights for everyone. Clean water. Wow. I actually saw on Facebook this morning, somebody had posted an article about a gentleman who, I don't remember when it was, I think in the 60s, maybe in the 50s. He lived in a poor neighborhood in New York, and the rats were just overrunning the neighborhood. And, all of the calls to City Hall, all of the, we need to be able to do this stuff, all of that was going nowhere. So he captured the rats and let them loose in rich neighborhoods. It's activism.
That's definitely getting creative with it.
Yeah, that is definitely getting creative with it. Not that I'm suggesting that anyone, do things like that, but I can see where people get to that point. I can see where people go, okay, enough. We've followed all of your rules. We have gone down the line of everything that you told us to do, and nothing has changed. Now we're going to change it. And I think that that's really where a lot of Americans are finally getting to. Finally.
It does seem that way.
Yeah. Logan, I want to thank you so much for your time and for getting up so early this morning. I really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your day. Is there any information that you want to share for yourself? I mean, do you have a website or a Facebook page or anywhere where you share information that you'd like to invite people to?
We do have a group on Facebook that's entirely for talking about like the KXL pipeline issues. Yes, the one in South Dakota is done, but there is another one, Line 3. There's always another fight. And if you could look up Turtle Island on Facebook, that'd be amazing.
All right. I just put that in our chat here, and hopefully it'll get added to our ticker. And again, thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Bye-bye. All right, that was activist Logan Jacobson. And for those of you who recognize the resemblance, yeah, he's mine. He's my son. And I'm really proud of the work that he is doing and the information that he shares to help people out. At this point, I think what I would like to do is start taking some psychic questions. That's part of what we're working into this show too, is that we're going to have a guest, and then if you want to put a question into the chat that you would like answered, I am here to do that. Are we ready to go with that? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. All right, well, let's take a break then, and we can come back to psychic questions. And I just got a message it will be a bit delayed. So, all right, so I'm going to keep talking for a while. I hope you like my voice because you're going to hear a lot of it. All right, so if you want to get involved in any type of activism, there are websites that you can go to, or you can just go into your Google or Bing search engines and put in the question, how do I get involved in activism? Or how do I get involved with a particular organization? There are some women's marches coming up October 2nd, and I think it's just called Women's March 2021. I think it's a website. I looked it up yesterday, but I don't remember exactly what it was. All right, let's take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back.
Looking to launch your new masterpiece? Then try something new with Moonbow Publishing and Publications. At Moonbow, we have a strong desire to serve authors in a powerful and meaningful way. After all, you've poured your heart and soul into your writing, and we fully understand and respect that. Remember this: you will own the copyright to your work. You will have the final say on your work before published. Even after all of that, we've saved the best for last. We won't take a percentage sold. Nope, not a penny. Excited about MoonbowPublications.com yet? We thought so. Take advantage of our company's services like book editing, formatting, and covers, publishing, and photography. Moonbow Publishing and Publications has everything you're looking for in a company. Remember, we will not keep any commissions. We are a boutique publishing company focusing on spiritual, health and wellness, and personal growth genres. So come and see what we can do for you at MoonbowPublications.com. That's MoonbowPublications.com. Moonbow Publications, a new kind of publishing company.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We don't have any questions at this time, so what I would like to do is tell you a little bit more about the commercial you just saw. I am co-owner of Moonbow Publications and Productions, LLC. What we really want to do for that is to get our authors some exposure and to help people who have had difficulty maybe putting together their thoughts even into a book and then taking that and bringing it to a fully published book. When I'm so excited about it because I'm a published author. I have gone both ways, traditional and self-publishing. Neither one really worked for me. So this is a hybrid that can help other people get published. I want to tell you about some of the books that we have coming out. We have a children's book coming out called Agatha and Steamer Grow a Pumpkin. It's a nice little Halloween story. And I'm really excited about that one because not only do you get the book, but you get a link to a private YouTube page that can help your student learn how to read or help your child learn how to read by having a film that goes along with the book. And I just think it is just genius the way that it was put together. I would also like to tell you about Janique's Journey. Janique's Journey is by author Valerie Savage, and it is a spiritual fiction piece that talks about a woman who thought who was on a spiritual path already, but then takes an adventure and the spiritual path just unfolds in front of her. And she has so much greater understanding by going on this journey. And it's just a beautiful story. And I hope that is on Amazon right now. You can pick that up, Janique's Journey. And it's an interesting spelling. So it's GENIQ''S, Janique. So you can pick that up again on Amazon. And we have 2 more books coming out. I had mentioned earlier Ernie's Journey of Hope by Linda Ledbetter. And that is her true story of a dog that everyone thought was hopeless, who is now happily living with a family that she was able to help him overcome his fears and aggressions to be able to live happily with a family. And it's a beautiful story. We also have CPR for the Grieving Heart that's coming out in the next few months. And that is someone's story of a sudden death of a spouse and how she got through it, and the different ways that it has different exercises and thoughts and prayers and all kinds of things all wrapped up into one that can help you work through grief if you're stuck in grief. And it's really, that too is a beautiful story, and it's a beautiful story with help to get you there. So those are some of the books that we have coming out. I'm working on a few books, not ready to talk about them yet. And if you are interested in having your book published and you are in the general spiritual, metaphysical, magical genre, without getting into religion, we don't allow any religious books because that just, I don't know, it muddies the waters on spirituality, in my opinion. So we welcome authors of children's authors and self-help books and spiritual fiction. There's just such a wide range of books that you can put out under this umbrella of a genre. With that, I would like to take you into a meditation to get you started for your day. I realize that for some of you, it's a little late for that. But for some of you more on the West Coast, this is a great opportunity to get a little meditation in prior to starting your day. So if you're in a position where you're able to, just sit back and relax and close your eyes and just take a few deep breaths. Inhale, exhale. And just let your muscles relax whenever you exhale. And the next exhale, just visualize roots growing from the bottoms of your feet down through the floor and into the earth, growing down through the layers of earth, all the way down to the center of the planet, where your roots will enter into a crystal cavern. Allow your roots to grow and expand, to wrap around the crystals with the following words: peace, love, light, hope, wisdom, clarity, guidance, compassion, abundance, gratitude. Leaving your roots wrapped around the crystals, draw energy from the crystals up your roots. See or feel the energy as it moves up through the layers of earth, coming up through the floor and entering your body at the soles of your feet. Feel the warm, grounding earth energy as it continues to rise up your legs, through your hips and up through your body, up to the neck, moving down your arms to the end of your fingertips. Bringing your focus back up to your shoulders, feel the energy as it moves up through your neck, up through your head, to the top of your head, to the crown chakra. Just breathe in that grounding earth energy. And focusing on the earth energy, consolidated into a beam of light that goes from your tailbone to the top of your head, drawing more of the earth energy to create the light. As the beam of light has been created, move your consciousness into it. Become the light. Take another deep breath. And as you exhale, as the beam of light rise up through the top of your head, up through the ceiling, the roof, and out into the sky, as you begin your journey all the way out, leaving Earth's atmosphere and moving through the Milky Way galaxy, past the planets and the stars, continuing your journey out now through deep space, all the way out to the edge of the known universe. As you pass the edge of the known universe, you enter into the place of pure divine creation. Allow your beam of light to disperse and become one with the creative energy of the divine universe. Take a moment now to set your intentions for the rest of the day. When you have set your intentions, draw your beam of light back together, bringing with it the shared knowledge and wisdom of the divine creative universe. When your beam of light has been completely reassembled, leaving an etheric thread to the creative universe, begin the journey back to your body, moving through deep space, entering and moving through the Milky Way galaxy, coming back through Earth's atmosphere, down through the sky, the roof, the ceiling, and re-entering your body at the top of your head. Feel the divine loving light of the universe as it moves through and fills you, allowing some of that light to move back down the roots to re-energize the crystals that support our planet. This is where we will spend the rest of our day, perfectly balanced between heaven and earth. And when you feel ready, you may open your eyes. Have a creative day, friends. Thank you for joining me this morning.